Hi, fifth grade. We are going to jump back into the book Promises to Keep by Sharon Robinson. When we left off, Jackie Robinson was basically close to the end of his career, and the next chapter is called A Civil Rights Champion. I'm going to try to zoom in as I read so you can either read along or sit back and listen. After the 1956 baseball season, it was clear that things had changed. Branch Rickey had left the Dodgers, and at age 37, Dad had passed his peak playing days. On December 13, 1956, the Brooklyn Dodgers announced that my father had been traded to their rival, the New York Giants. Dad played along with the news of the trade, saying he'd give the Giants all that he had to give. The truth was, my father was aware that his baseball playing days were almost over. In anticipation of his retirement, he was investigating other opportunities. As the Dodgers announced the trade, my father stepped up his negotiations with a coffee manufacturer and restaurant chain chock full o' nuts for a career outside of baseball. News of the trade sent baseball fans into an uproar. Angry letters poured into the Dodgers offices and into our home. The trade hit us hard, too. Dad had wanted to retire as a Brooklyn Dodger. He was angry that the team to which he'd been loyal hadn't even bothered to consult him on their plans to trade him. Without letting on that he intended to retire rather than accept his trade, Dad's agent made a deal with Look magazine. They got the exclusive rights to print my father's retirement story. In the January 1957 issue of Look, Dad announced his retirement from baseball. The Giants tried to get my father to change his mind by offering him more money. Dad turned them down. He accepted a job with chock full o' nuts in New York City. At home, we celebrated the news. Major League Baseball players spent 9 months of the year traveling, and we knew that if Dad retired, he'd be home with us more. So, as Dad prepared for life as a commuter, we imagined having him at home most nights in time for dinner. We liked the idea. And I'm going to go back and read through the captions. I was the middle child between two brothers, David and Jackie. This picture was taken for Look magazine in 1956. We were 4, 6, and 10 at the time. Dad's competitiveness was matched by our own when we challenged him to a game of Monopoly. And this caption, we were glad Dad wasn't going to be on the road so much and would be around for things like trips to the candy shop. Turn the page. Dad exchanged his Dodgers uniform for a corporate suit and tie in the winter of 1957. He became vice president of personnel for chock full o' nuts. Like lots of other fathers in Samford, Dad left home each morning at 8 and returned most nights by 6. Not being on the road meant he had time to give motivational speeches, write newspaper columns, raise money for civil rights organizations, join protest marches, speak to youth groups, play golf, and cut the lawn. Dad also agreed to chair the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Freedom Fund Drive. As NAACP chairman, he traveled around the country raising money for the nation's oldest civil rights organization. The first year of his tour, he helped raise more than $1 million. Dad joined a group of investors and community activists to bring the first black-run bank to Harlem in New York City. They felt that a minority-owned and operated bank was the only way to help rebuild Harlem's predominantly black community. On January 4, 1965, Freedom National Bank opened on 125th Street. And here's some pictures of him helping speak, protest, and this caption says, Dad retires from baseball. Next page. On January 23, 1962, my father learned that he'd been elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first round. He was happy and excited. There was a flurry of activity that led up to the July induction ceremony in Cooperstown, New York. I was 12 at the time and not quite sure what all the hoopla was about. I asked my father what it meant to be chosen for the Hall of Fame. He said it was like being named to the Supreme Court if you were a lawyer. I got the point. Dad's Hall of Fame induction was wonderful. Both of my grandmothers were there with us, along with Branch Rickey and many others who had helped my parents throughout my dad's baseball career. Dad was the first African American inducted into the hall. When he was presented with his plaque, he spoke with such pride. I was so happy to be part of this big day. The following year, we hosted the first of many jazz concerts at our home to raise money for the civil rights movement. The 1963 concert was a fundraiser for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Committee. And over here on this caption, it says, July 23, 1962, my father was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, which honors some of the sport's greatest players. My mother, as always, is by his side. Election to the Hall of Fame isn't a popularity contest like the All-Star Game is now, where admission is determined by the fans. Players are voted into the Hall of Fame by the men and women who study baseball players and write about them. Negro League players, however, went unrecognized until Satchel Paige was inducted into the Hall in 1971. Okay, next caption. In addition to being a businessman, entrepreneur, and activist, Dad was a radio commentator for NBC and several local stations. He also wrote newspaper columns. Dad loved to talk and debate issues. And the bottom picture in the corner, my father encouraged other athletes to lend a hand with the civil rights movement. Boxing champions Floyd Patterson and Archie Moore, along with baseball star Curt Flood, joined him. Other professional athletes stayed away from the civil rights movement and politics. This troubled my father. He once asked, "Is there a medal anywhere which is worth a man's dignity?" And this middle caption in black. In 1964, my father left chock full o' nuts to campaign for New York's Governor Nelson Rockefeller, who was running for president. Wow. Next page. During the 1960s, Dad wore many different hats and faced many new challenges. The biggest challenge was his health. Shortly after he retired from baseball, Dad found out that he was diabetic. His health problems became more and more serious. Dad was only in his 40s when he had his first heart attack. By his late 40s, his diabetes had left him partially blind. Still, the last 7 years of my dad's life were filled with politics, business, family, friends, and golf. During that time, I married and attended Howard University College of Nursing. My brother David completed high school at Mount Hermon, Massachusetts, and went on to college at Stanford University. Mom taught nursing at Yale University. My older brother Jackie fought in Vietnam, received a Purple Heart, and then died tragically in a car accident when he was only 24. Despite our shock and pain over losing our beloved Jackie, we rallied as a family for what turned out to be our last year with Dad. That was 1972. It was also the 25th anniversary of Dad's breaking the color barrier. In addition to special times together as a family, we celebrated Dad receiving a number of tributes. The final one took place on October 15, 1972. Dad threw out the first ceremonial pitch during the second game of the World Series in Cincinnati, Ohio. A record crowd was in attendance. An estimated 60 million people watched the ceremony on television. All Major League Baseball teams were now fielding Black, white, or Hispanic players, but the diversity stopped there. There were no non-white executives, managers, or general managers in professional baseball. So Dad felt it important that he use his last public address to remind us all that equality was an ongoing struggle. I am extremely proud and pleased, Dad said in his World Series speech, but I am going to be more pleased and more proud when I look at that third base coaching line one day and see a black face managing in baseball. In addition to his many achievements in sports, my father was awarded the highest honors from civil and human rights organizations, religious groups, and the United States government. From the NAACP's Spingarn Medal to the nation's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, my father's accomplishments on and off the field have been widely recognized. Dad spent his entire life fighting for equality. He won some battles and lost others. He made some mistakes, but he also inspired millions. My father never lost hope or gave in to despair, even when his health failed him. He once said, "A life is not important except for the impact it has on other lives." Dad lived his philosophy. Here is one caption. Mom, Dad, and I stood proudly beside Dad at the 1972 World Series. Dad's message was heard worldwide. My mom said, Jack fought tirelessly for social justice and equality of opportunity for all people. He even ventured into hostile territory, seeking to understand the complexity of issues dividing the United States. In doing so, there was always the risk of being rejected and misunderstood. And this caption, my father helped change America. This lifetime of service continues to inspire. And the top one, April 15, 1997, President Clinton, my mother, and Major League Baseball Commissioner Bud Selig celebrate the 15th anniversary of Dad breaking the color barrier. So we will finish the book tomorrow, but that is the end of that section. And please look online for the questions to go with that chapter. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.